respected. Before this moment ends, I need you to hear this with your heart, not just your ears. Somewhere beyond what your eyes can see, beyond the noise of your doubts and the weight of your mistakes, an angel looked at your name, and heaven fell silent. Not because of your failures, not because of your past, but because of what is still written about you in the unseen. There are moments in life when we feel invisible. You wake up, you go through your routine, you carry responsibilities, you fight private battles no one applauds. You scroll through the lives of others and wonder if your story even matters. You pray, sometimes with faith, sometimes with frustration. And in those quiet hours, you ask yourself a question you rarely admit out loud. Does anyone see me? But imagine this. Imagine that in a realm untouched by fear, untouched by comparison, untouched by the small definitions of this world, your name is spoken, not casually, not accidentally, deliberately. And when it is spoken, an angel pauses, not in confusion, but in awe. Because attached to your name is a destiny you have not yet fully stepped into. Dr. David often speaks about the hidden chapters of a human life. He says that what we see is only the surface, and beneath it is a deeper script written by experience, resilience, pain, and divine timing. You are not just the person who made mistakes. You are not just the one who struggled. You are not just the one who was overlooked. You are a story in progress. And when heaven looks at a story in progress, it does not judge the rough draft. It focuses on the ending. There was a man I once met who believed his life had already peaked at 30. By 40, he had lost his business. By 45, his marriage had ended. He told me one evening, with tears he tried to hide, that he felt like a footnote in his own existence. I had potential, he said. Now I just have regrets. But what he did not see was that the very pain he was experiencing was shaping him into someone deeper, wiser, more compassionate. He started mentoring young entrepreneurs, not because he felt strong, but because he remembered what it felt like to be lost. Those young men and women would later say that his advice saved them from the very mistakes that cost him everything. If an angel looked at his name during his lowest moment, heaven would not have seen a failure. It would have seen a teacher in disguise. You see, we often measure our worth by visible success, money, titles, applause. But the unseen realm measures something different. It measures growth. It measures courage in the face of fear. It measures the quiet decision to get up again when no one is watching. Have you ever noticed how the most significant transformations happen in silence? Seeds grow in darkness before they break through the soil. Diamonds form under pressure before they shine. A caterpillar dissolves completely before it becomes a butterfly. Nature does not announce its process, it trusts it. Why do we struggle to trust ours? Perhaps because pain feels permanent when you are inside it. When relationships break, when opportunities close, when people misunderstand you, it feels like the end. But what if it is not the end? What if it is a necessary interruption? What if heaven fell silent, not because your story was over, but because something powerful was being rearranged? Dr. David speaks about perspective as a spiritual muscle. He says that perspective determines whether you see a wall or a doorway. The same event can either imprison you or refine you. The difference is not the event. The difference is the lens. When an angel looks at your name, it does not see you through the lens of your fear. It sees you through the lens of possibility. Think about the battles you have survived, the nights you cried without telling anyone, the mornings you showed up even when your heart felt heavy, the times you forgave when it would have been easier to hold bitterness. Those moments matter. They are not small. They are sacred. Heaven does not celebrate perfection. It honors perseverance. And maybe that is why it fell silent. Because perseverance commands respect in realms we do not fully understand. Let me tell you about a woman who worked 2 jobs while studying at night. She felt ordinary, invisible. She never made headlines. She never went viral. But she kept going. Years later, she became the first in her family to graduate from university. Her younger siblings followed her path. Her children grew up watching what discipline looks like. Her name may never be famous, but her impact echoes through generations. When an angel looks at a name like that, silence is not emptiness. It is reverence. We underestimate the power of consistency. We underestimate the strength it takes to continue when motivation fades. We underestimate ourselves because we compare our backstage to someone else's highlight reel. But here is the truth. Comparison is a thief of divine assignment. Your journey was not designed to look like anyone else. If it did, it would not require your specific heart, your specific scars, your specific voice. There are things you can handle that others cannot. There are storms you survived that would have broken someone else. And there are gifts within you that are still unfolding. Sometimes heaven falls silent because something sacred is being prepared. Silence is not rejection. Silence is often anticipation. Have you ever noticed how an audience grows quiet just before something extraordinary happens on stage? The silence builds expectation. It heightens awareness. It creates space for impact. What if the silence around your life right now is not emptiness but preparation? Maybe you have been praying for clarity, for direction, for a breakthrough, and instead you feel like you are in a waiting room. Doors seem closed. Answers seem delayed. You question whether you missed your chance. But waiting is not wasting. Dr. Divet says that waiting seasons reveal the strength of your roots. Anyone can stand tall in sunshine, but only those deeply rooted survive storms and drought. In your waiting, something is strengthening within you. Patience, humility, faith. And those qualities are not flashy, but they are foundational. An angel does not rush a masterpiece. It recognizes that timing shapes impact. You might not understand the timing of your life right now. You might feel behind, but behind compared to whom? Society's timeline, someone else's expectations. Those measurements are temporary. They shift with trends and opinions. Purpose does not operate on social pressure. It operates on divine alignment. And alignment often requires solitude. It requires pruning. It requires moments where you feel alone, not because you are abandoned, but because you are being refined. When heaven fell silent at your name, it was not disappointment. It was attention. There is something powerful about being fully seen, not the version you present to the world, not the filtered image, but the real you, the flawed you, the hopeful you, the tired you, the courageous you. And to be seen fully and still valued is one of the deepest forms of love. Perhaps you have been trying to earn worth that was already assigned to you. Perhaps you have been running, striving, exhausting yourself to prove something that does not need proof. Your name carries inherent value, not because of what you achieved, not because of what you avoided, but because you exist with intention. There are people you have not yet met who will be changed because you refuse to quit. There are rooms you will walk into that will feel different because you are there. There are conversations that will shift someone's direction because you chose to speak. You do not see the ripple effect of your existence, but heaven does. And when an angel looks at your name, it sees ripples you cannot imagine. So if you are in a season of doubt, hold on. If you are in a season of rebuilding, keep going. If you are in a season of quiet growth, trust it. The silence is not your enemy. It is your preparation. There is a moment in every life when the noise fades and you are left alone with your own thoughts. No applause, no distraction, no one to impress, just you and the quiet truth of where you stand. Many people fear that moment. They run from it. They fill it with entertainment, with busyness, with endless scrolling because silence can feel confronting. But what if silence is not confronting you to shame you? What if it is inviting you to awaken? When an angel looked at your name and heaven fell silent, it was not a silence of judgment. It was a silence of recognition. Recognition of the battles you have not spoken about. Recognition of the resilience you did not even know you possessed. Recognition of the fact that despite everything that tried to break you, you are still here, still breathing, still hoping, still trying. That is not small. There was a young man who once told me he felt like he was living on borrowed time. Every mistake he made, he carried like a permanent label. He believed his past had disqualified him from any meaningful future. Every opportunity that came his way, he hesitated, whispering to himself, I am not worthy. And because he believed it, he acted like it. He shrank. He avoided responsibility. He sabotaged chances before they could even bloom. Until one day, someone asked him a simple question. Who told you that your past is stronger than your potential? He had no answer. Many of us have accepted narratives that were never meant to define us. A teacher who underestimated you. A parent who spoke out of frustration. A failure that happened at the wrong time. A relationship that ended in betrayal. These experiences can become internal voices, and over time, we start calling those voices truth. But the truth is this, a moment does not equal your identity. Dr. David often reminds us that identity is not formed in comfort. It is forged in resistance. Just like steel is strengthened in fire. Your character has been strengthened in the heat of adversity. The very challenges you resent may have been the tools that shaped your endurance. Think about the times you thought you would not make it through. The heartbreak that felt suffocating, the rejection that felt humiliating, the financial stress that kept you awake at night. Yet somehow you adapted, you learned, you survived. That survival is not accidental. It reveals something about your inner design. When heaven fell silent at your name, it was as if the universe leaned in closer, not to watch you fall, but to witness what you would become next. There is something sacred about becoming. Becoming requires discomfort. It requires letting go of old versions of yourself. It requires stepping into unfamiliar territory. And it often requires walking alone for a while. We talk about growth as if it is glamorous, but growth is messy. It is confusing. It feels like losing before it feels like gaining. It feels like breaking before it feels like building. Yet within that breaking, something extraordinary is happening. A caterpillar does not negotiate its transformation. It does not argue with the cocoon. It does not demand to skip the process. It surrenders to it. And inside that surrender, everything changes. You too have been in a cocoon season. Maybe it is a job that does not fully satisfy you, but is teaching you discipline. Maybe it is a relationship that challenges your patience, but is teaching you empathy. Maybe it is a period of loneliness that is teaching you to be comfortable with your own company. We often label these seasons as setbacks, but what if they are setups? Setups for strength, setups for wisdom, setups for clarity. When you look back on your life, you will notice a pattern. The moments you thought were endings were often redirections. The doors that closed forced you to find better ones. The people who walked away created space for those who truly align with you. Rejection has a strange way of protecting us from misalignment. You may not have seen it at the time. You may have cried over it. You may have begged for it to work. But sometimes what does not stay was never meant to carry you forward. Heaven, silence is not confusion. It is coordination. There are things aligning behind the scenes that you cannot see. Conversations happening that will open doors. Lessons forming within you that will prepare you for responsibility. Strength developing quietly so that when opportunity arrives, you are not crushed by it. Because let me tell you something powerful. Opportunity without preparation can become destruction. Many people ask for success, but few ask for the character to sustain it. Many ask for influence, but not for the humility to handle it. Many ask for blessings, but not for the wisdom to steward them. Perhaps the silence in your life right now is building the capacity you will need later. Dr. Devet teaches that capacity determines destiny. It is not enough to desire something. You must become the type of person who can carry it. If you want peace, you must learn to respond instead of react. If you want leadership, you must learn to serve. If you want stability, you must learn discipline. Heaven does not rush you into a role you are not ready for. It refines you until you can stand firm within it. And here is something deeply important. Your worth is not tied to your speed. Some people bloom early, others bloom later. Some discover their calling at 20, others at 50. Some build success quickly, others slowly, brick by brick. But blooming late does not mean blooming less. There is a tree that takes years to grow strong roots before it ever shows significant height. During those years, it looks unimpressive, ordinary, almost stagnant. But beneath the surface, it is anchoring itself so deeply that when storms come, it does not collapse. Would you rather rise quickly and fall easily, or grow steadily and stand unshaken? Heaven values endurance. When the angel looked at your name, it did not compare you to anyone else. It did not measure you against a neighbor or a colleague or a friend. It looked at your journey, your timeline, your specific path. And in that moment, there was silence because your story is uniquely yours. Stop trying to rush what is still unfolding. Stop measuring your chapter 2 against someone else. It's chapter 10. Stop assuming that delay equals denial. There is a difference between not yet and not ever. You are in the not yet fully revealed, not yet fully recognized, not yet fully aligned. But every day you show up with intention, you move closer. Every time you choose integrity over shortcuts, you strengthen your foundation. Every time you forgive instead of holding resentment, you lighten your spirit. Every time you try again after failure, you prove to yourself that you are stronger than your setbacks. And one day you will look back at this season and realize it was the turning point, the quiet pivot that changed everything. The silence was not absence, it was focus. It was heaven leaning in, watching you grow into the person you were always capable of becoming. There comes a point in every journey where you must decide who you are when no one is validating you. Not when people are clapping, not when the results are visible. But when it feels like you are walking through a long corridor with no doors opening yet. This is the place where identity is tested. When the angel looked at your name and heaven fell silent, it was not because your life was small. It was because your life carries weight. And weight requires strength. Strength requires pressure. And pressure reveals what is truly within you. Many people want transformation, but they resist tension. They want elevation, but they avoid responsibility. They want change, but they fear discomfort. Yet tension is not your enemy, it is your training ground. Dr. Divitt speaks about responsibility as the gateway to freedom. He says that the moment you stop blaming circumstances and start refining your response, your power returns. You cannot control every event, you cannot control every opinion, you cannot control every outcome. But you can control who you choose to become through it. And that choice is sacred. There was a woman who grew up in an environment where negativity was normal. Criticism was constant. Dreams were mocked. She learned early to doubt herself. As an adult, even when opportunities appeared, she would hear the echo of those early voices telling her she was not enough. For years, she believed them. Until one day, she realized something simple but life-altering. Those voices were inherited, not chosen. And what is inherited can be released. She began the slow work of rebuilding her internal dialogue. Every time the old voice said, "You cannot," she responded with, "Watch me try." Every time fear whispered, "You will fail," she answered, "Even if I do, I will learn." It did not change overnight, but slowly her identity shifted from victim to creator, from doubter to doer. When heaven looks at someone who chooses growth over bitterness, silence is not emptiness, it is admiration. You see, bitterness is easy. Blame is easy. Complaining is easy. But self-examination is rare. Accountability is rare. Choosing to grow instead of resent is rare. And rare things are valuable. Perhaps the reason heaven fell silent at your name is because you are in the middle of breaking a pattern. A generational pattern of fear. A personal pattern of self-sabotage. A relational pattern of settling for less than you deserve. Breaking patterns is not glamorous work. It is exhausting. It forces you to confront truths you avoided. It forces you to let go of familiar dysfunction. It forces you to walk away from comfort zones that once felt safe. But comfort is not always alignment. Alignment often feels uncomfortable at first because it demands a higher standard from you, a higher level of honesty, a higher level of discipline, a higher level of faith. You cannot become who you are meant to be while clinging to who you used to be. Growth requires grief. Grief for the old habits. Grief for the old mindset. Grief even for the old relationships that no longer fit your direction. And grief is part of transformation. There was a man who decided to change his life after years of destructive habits. When he stopped participating in the same behaviors, some of his closest friends distanced themselves. He felt lonely. He questioned whether growth was worth the isolation. But isolation is sometimes protection. Those friends were connected to a version of him that no longer existed. And as painful as it was to let them go, it created space for new connections aligned with his future. Sometimes heaven falls silent because something sacred is being removed before something greater can arrive. We do not like removal. We interpret it as loss. But what if it is refinement? When a sculptor shapes stone, he chips away at it. The stone might think it is being destroyed, but in reality it is being revealed. The excess must go so the masterpiece can emerge. What if the parts of your life that feel like they are falling apart are actually being chipped away so your true form can stand out? Dr. Divitt often says that pain is a teacher, that only if you listen. Otherwise it becomes repetition. If you refuse to learn from it, you relive it. The same mistakes, the same patterns, the same disappointments. But if you pause and ask, what is this teaching me? Everything shifts. Maybe that failed relationship taught you to value yourself more. Maybe that financial hardship taught you discipline. Maybe that betrayal taught you discernment. Maybe that season of obscurity taught you humility. Lessons are seeds. If planted, they grow into wisdom. If ignored, they decay into regret. Heaven does not waste pain. It repurposes it. And you have more strength than you realize. Think about how many times you adapted, how many times you reinvented yourself, how many times you started over. Reinvention is not weakness. It is courage in motion. There is something powerful about someone who can fall and still believe in rising. Resilience is not loud. It does not announce itself. It shows up quietly in daily decisions, in choosing to wake up and try again, in choosing to apply one more time, in choosing to love again after heartbreak, in choosing to trust again after betrayal. When the angel looked at your name, it did not see perfection. It saw persistence. And persistence changes destiny. You may not feel extraordinary, but extraordinary is often disguised as ordinary consistency. Doing the right thing repeatedly. Showing up when it is inconvenient. Staying true when compromise would be easier. Character is built in repetition. And your character is being strengthened right now, even if you do not feel it. One day, someone will look at you and say, I do not know how you stayed strong. They will not see the tears you cried in private. They will not see the nights you questioned everything. They will only see the outcome. But heaven saw the process. Heaven saw you choosing integrity when no one was watching. Heaven saw you forgiving when revenge would have been easier. Heaven saw you staying disciplined when shortcuts were tempting. And that is why there was silence, because true strength deserves stillness. So if you are in a season where you feel stretched, do not panic. Stretching increases capacity. It prepares you to hold more responsibility, more opportunity, more influence. You are not being punished. You are being prepared. The silence is not abandonment. It is becoming. There is a quiet moment that comes just before breakthrough. It does not announce itself with fireworks. It does not send a notification to your phone. It arrives softly, almost unnoticed, like dawn slowly pushing back the night. And most people miss it because they are too focused on how long the night has been. When the angel looked at your name and heaven fell silent, it was not only because of who you are. It was because of who you are about to become. There are versions of you that have not yet stepped forward. Stronger versions, wiser versions, calmer versions, braver versions. You think you have already met your limits, but you have not. Life has a way of stretching you beyond what you thought was possible. Not to break you, but to reveal you. There was a season in my own journey when everything felt uncertain. Plans collapsed. Doors I was sure would open remained shut. People I expected to stay walked away. I remember sitting alone, asking questions into the silence. Why is this happening? What did I do wrong? Am I losing my direction? And in that silence, there was no immediate answer. No dramatic sign. Just a steady realization that my identity could not be built on outcomes alone. Outcomes change. Applause fades. Positions shift. But character remains. Dr. Divet often says that if you anchor your identity in purpose rather than performance, you will not crumble when performance fluctuates. That truth reshaped my perspective. I began to ask different questions. Instead of asking, why is this door closed? I asked, who am I becoming while it is closed? That shift changed everything. Because when you focus on becoming, you stop obsessing over timing. You start refining your habits. You start strengthening your mindset. You start aligning your actions with the person you claim you want to be. And slowly, quietly, momentum builds. Momentum does not always look dramatic. It looks like small improvements, better decisions, healthier boundaries, more disciplined mornings, more intentional conversations. It looks like growth that no one applauds but everyone will eventually notice. Perhaps right now you feel unseen. You feel like your efforts are not producing visible rewards. You feel like you are pouring energy into a future that has not yet shown itself. But understand this deeply. Roots grow before fruit appears. If you dig up a seed every day to check its progress, you will kill it. Growth requires trust. Trust requires patience. And patience requires faith in what you cannot yet see. When heaven fell silent, it was as if creation itself was holding its breath, waiting for you to recognize your own power. Not power over others, but power over yourself. The power to choose discipline over distraction. The power to choose hope over despair. The power to choose forgiveness over resentment. The power to choose courage over comfort. These choices may seem small in the moment, but they shape your destiny. You are not here by accident. Your experiences are not random. The challenges you faced were not meaningless. They were shaping tools. There are people watching you who draw strength from your resilience. Maybe they never told you. Maybe they never will. But your refusal to quit is giving someone else permission to keep going. You do not know how far your influence reaches. Sometimes the most impactful lives are not the loudest ones, they are the consistent ones, the reliable ones. The ones who stay true when compromise is easier. If you feel like you have been in a long season of preparation, understand that preparation is not punishment. It is protection. It ensures that when elevation comes, it does not destroy you. Because elevation without maturity creates collapse. But elevation with character creates legacy. And you are not building for a moment. You are building for legacy. Legacy is not about fame. It is about impact. It is about the values you pass on, the standards you uphold, the example you set. One day, someone will trace their courage back to you. Someone will trace their discipline back to watching you. Someone will trace their faith back to the way you endured. You might never see the full picture of your influence, but heaven does, and that is enough. So stand taller in your silence. Walk confidently in your preparation. Embrace the stretching, welcome the refinement. The angel did not look at your name with doubt. It looked with expectation. Heaven did not fall silent in disappointment. It fell silent in awe of potential unfolding. You are closer than you think, stronger than you feel, more capable than you believe. Do not shrink now. Do not settle now. Do not turn back now. Everything you have endured has been shaping you for this next chapter. And when that chapter opens, you will realize that the silence was never emptiness. It was sacred. Would you like me to write the conclusion?